Hey everyone, sorry I'm not on camera today, still recovering from an illness and looking quite dreadful. But either way, let's cut the bullshit, much like the game we're talking about today. The latest game by Team Ninja, the creators of the Ninja Gaiden reboot series, Nioh on PS4. Yet another exclusive game for the PS4 that makes me extremely happy I invested in the system, and I will be spoiling a lot in this video. And I did play this on the PS4 Pro, it played fucking beautifully by the way. Nioh isn't too hard to describe from face value. Take the brutality and attention-sucking gameplay from Dark Souls and basically mix it with Sonic the Hedgehog. Think I'm kidding? No, this is one of the fastest games I've played in years, and one that absolutely will fudging punish you if you aren't on the mark. Where Dark Souls is very reactionary, but also slow, methodical, and terrifying, Nioh instead takes a few ecstasy pills, throws atmosphere and horror out the window, and instead goes for, "Hey, you awake? Great, now you're dead!" And I've got to be honest, for the most part, I bloody loved it. As much as Dark Souls? No, unfortunately, but it definitely gives it its all in trying to stand out by being uniquely stylized by Japanese culture and visuals, and being much, much faster than anything even like Bloodborne. Not to mention with tons of variety and actual use with the variety that puts some of Dark Souls' endless vapid pool of pointless weapons to shame. But first we must unfortunately start by judging a book by its covers, and for the first things you absorb once the game begins, the visuals are stellar. And it's also nice that on PS4 Pro you can change how much detail you want in exchange of the frame rate. Initially I thought to myself, I don't care, I want to make the game look like a moving painting. But then I quickly decided that the 60 FPS frame rate was a lot more appreciated. Try playing a game with this fast combat that can kill you in milliseconds with anything less. And to be honest, you don't lose that much visual fidelity at all for the privilege, because the Japanese art styles and sun-kissed drenched weather effects make it one of the smoothest and prettiest games hand in hand on the system. I have no idea how well it fares on the regular PS4, but for me, jumping into a game about ancient samurai and waiting for an epic and near impossible samurai duel on top of a long grassed cliff overlooked by a heavy sun was made a million times more standout and worth it to me with how gorgeous it looked and how smoothly it ran when that moment came. It never disappoints, let's just say. But look at me rambling about long grass when nobody knows what the story is here, and to be frank with you all, the story is extremely fun and silly and hilarious.
You think you have me? Kill each other, you samurai fools!
Oh god, it's so nice to have a bad guy like that again. But also mostly all based on actual Japanese history in an alternate reality, and with actual Japanese cultural and historical figures. The person you control even, Geralt from The Witcher— oh, no, sorry, William, who may have also been in Planet of the Apes, is even based off of a real British sailor from the history books around the time that this game is set, the late 1500s and early 1600s, William Adams. Apparently the first Englishman to ever travel to Japan and one of the first ever Western samurai in the world.
Anzo, do you seriously follow this pretentious little prick?
Why he's now Irish is because the Pogues fucking rock, I don't know. And the main story here is that William, in this game of pirate, has a mystical spirit fairy that can locate wonderful magic stones called Amrita that grant you immense power. Please just stay with me. And after discovering a plot by the English to weaponize Amrita in their war against the Spanish, he's locked up in the Tower of London for trying to unravel a conspiracy. Perhaps on the orders of Queen Elizabeth I, Edward Kelly, a real British alchemist who actually died before this game's events, funnily enough, kidnaps William's spirit to find more Amrita, and without thinking about it, Bill follows Edward to Japan where the Amrita is. So yeah, you need to go and get your fairy back, that's pretty much the story. And then come home and do the dishes with it. Of course, there's also a Japanese civil war going on at the same time that involves actual Japanese historic events, and you get tangled into all of it. But now there's this mystical Amrita that can transform people into demons, as well as actual Japanese demons, the yokai, moving their way into our realm and basically fucking everything up. So yeah, it's completely ridiculous, but tons of fun, and if you know your Japanese history, you will be reveling in this. Or shaking your head from how much they are shamed, I really don't know. I mean, just look at all the names of the characters that pop up. Some appear and vanish every 5 minutes and you're expected to remember them all. And you know what? I also loved how sometimes you could listen to the last words of some of the dead bodies that you searched. It adds a little bit more believability and heart to the world. Okay. And it all ends with a completely bombastic 2-stage boss with a snake with 40 heads, and then a twist suggesting that you weren't fighting the real Kelly all along because he did die before this game really began, whatever. And then on your return to England, a final epilogue bonus mission activates when you find out who was pulling the strings the whole time, where Kelly and all of the mutant human demons were coming from, and then the Eldritch Abomination true final boss appears and just, shit, look at this thing, I love it. It's called 100 Eyes. It's got more than well, maybe it's got 100 eyes, maybe it's got less, I don't know. I just love it. It's a great ending fight too, especially for a surprise. And I love even more that at the end they decide to pull the whole let's hide the truth from the history books kind of ending, which is so corny and sitcom-y, yet so adorable I didn't really give a flying curly whirly. This guy was my favorite character.
Oh,
But a great journey is naught if it isn't worth twat, and luckily the rest of the game is great, minus a few stick-out flaws that left me slightly disappointed in places. The best way I can describe the gameplay synopsis is Dark Souls but with a mission structure. There's no open world, smaller areas, loading times are less than 2 seconds after death, something is happening every 2 seconds, and it's constantly exciting. There's never a dull moment, and there's always something different going on, which I really appreciate. The goal most of the time is getting to the end of the gauntlet, finding the checkpoints, cashing in your level up points before you lose them on a death trying to retrieve the ones you lost before, and then fighting the boss at the end of every mission to close it off. But every mission has totally different visual design and approaches to level structure. Some are built like a huge circle around the boss battle and are totally open until you can get inside the boss. Some are built like complete mazes with hidden passages and death waiting for you around every corner. Some are built like twisted fun houses where rules change constantly to throw you off, but most of them are just straight ascents with occasional side areas and looping shortcuts you need to activate to help you get back to where you were if you die. A few levels even give you a few different tasks to search around and really benefit you. For instance, one level has you lighting torches in a broken sinking dojo setting, where you need to climb up loads of different maze-like rooftops and jump onto shipwrecks in order to find them. And lighting all of them stops any random enemies from spawning in the boss fight later on. Another instance has you looking for poisonous pods in a deep system of caves, and to stop this poison in the caves affecting you, you need to cut it out for a few seconds with extractors, find and destroy these pods, and then carry on. Every main mission even has exceptionally well hidden, adorable Kadamas that can do lots of things to the level, like increase weapon drops or health drops, and are just way too adorable not to find. Look at them! It's extremely fun to find them, and it also increases your understanding of the levels by making you look in places that you wouldn't usually look for some amazing weapons and armor, maybe even the occasional hot spring that gives you all of your health back and makes you heal automatically for a short period of time. Other levels have these crystals that regenerate all of the health of the enemies around them. Destroy them and you'll kill them all instantly, or you can fight the enemies one-on-one if you aren't that brave, because that isn't an easy thing to do, but get ready for a tricky one-on-one fight. You have to be quick because they do heal. The great thing is how optional all of these things are though, apart from this one boss battle which is the worst bit of the game if you ask me, where this guy has like 3 crystals healing him faster than you can actually damage him, meaning that you have to basically only destroy the crystals to win. Problem is these crystals also heal themselves when you hit them, and when you aren't near the boss he can throw rocks at you very quickly, leaving the crystals to heal again and you with basically no health that you need to regenerate, which then makes them heal even more. This is pure luck, this fight. The only thing making it not unbearable is the fact that the crystals stay destroyed after any death, otherwise this would be one of the worst bosses in history. Or there's also a guide that wants you to look for some poo. But hey, the options for combat that you have, my god, I mean, you get the standard stuff, you know, swords, dual swords, spears, axes, etc. But not only can you choose to level into your magic, but also choose to level into your ninja skills for stealth and shoryuken carrying and effectiveness, as well as melee fighting. And even then, if you don't want to go down those special routes like myself, I went into melee everything. Every single melee weapon has different combos, different special moves, different benefits and costs for use against particular enemies, different staggerers and finishers, and you can even choose to level into your chosen weapon spirit, which you can power up with successful combat and then unleash every so often for ultra powers to your weapon for a brief time. Or not, you don't need to rely on it because you can just make sure to level into your base strength instead. I did find it a little bullshit, however, that the game locks away tons of incredibly important and unbelievably helpful weapon abilities until you beat the training missions for them. And it doesn't even tell you that that's the mission that you have to beat to access them. It keeps them a secret. Seriously, why would I go back to the tutorial dojo when I'm already comfortable with the game? And why would I assume I'd only be allowed to access more abilities for completing them? It's completely detrimental. It makes no sense. Surely you'd unlock more abilities by being great at the game, not by going back to the very beginning of it. It's also worth saying that the first major disappointment sometimes is the level design itself. I mean, it's good, not shitting on it, but it's never allowed to properly flourish with the mission-based approach. It's restricted somewhat, like everywhere feels different to explore and combat your way through, and you feel a connection, but never a full-on bond. I don't remember what most of the levels were like in the game, and that could be because they're all built mostly like video game levels and not like worlds, blocking you off with frequent random roadblocks just because there they are, and there are no major aha moments or clicks in your brain once you figure out how levels loop around or how worlds connect to worlds from most of the blank obvious doors that are locked from the other side. And the fact that most of the levels are a straight trek with a few side areas, even with the occasional trap to throw you off. And the side missions, whoa, okay, yes. Along with the very different 19 main missions, you get a load of side missions. Lots have very different things to do in different locations, but most of them involve you going through the exact same levels with the exact same enemies. This is even the same for the ultra difficult Twilight missions. Do not misunderstand me though, for beating these missions you get some of the best weapons and armor for future main missions in the game, and even more uses for your blacksmith and such in the mission map once you save particular characters from other hidden boss battles. But the point is, it's still the same environments with the same exact enemies. enemies. Yes, with different weather, but that's not enough. The bosses themselves even get recycled as side missions, and yes, again, the rewards are awesome. There is a reason to do these, and they are very fun to do, especially with the side bosses because you unlock more spirits to change what your ultra power-up weapon does. But the point is, you're still doing the same thing again. By the last 2 regions in the game, I actually ignored every single side mission because of the repetition. Even if the gameplay is always good and the rewards always great, I just kind of got a bit cocky and thought, you know what, I'm going to try and do these last bits without doing any of the side stuff. When I did my first Twilight mission on stage 1, which was like, I don't know, 20 or 30 levels above what I was already at, so I was already petrified, and saw that these yokai were regular enemies now instead of mini bosses, which they would have been in the original main mission, I shat everywhere. They're scary, they hit hard, they're fast. But to then learn they become standard enemies very soon after and never change in variety even when they get new attacks later on completely loses any kind of threat they once carried. Even in the main missions there aren't that many varieties of yokai demons. They're always horrifying the first time you see them, but then when the game tries surprising you with them in the main missions and the side missions, nah. I know how to deal with you guys now, even if they are always fun to fight and can kill you if you aren't concentrating. I mean, I don't mean to sound too negative because, yeah, like I said, the gameplay, the core of it is always fantastic. It's always so damn good, and they are optional, even though I'd still recommend doing them for the leveling up and the gear. And I managed to finish when I was supposed to be a level 145, so that goes to show you how open to playstyles the game is and how much work you want to put into it. It's totally doable at lower levels, and I was switching weapons all the time. I was going from sword to dual sword to spears to axes. I loved going through all of these different things. I found different uses for different situations and different kinds of corridors and different kinds of bosses. There were uses for everything, so it was actually kind of mind-blowing how many different ways I could level into each particular weapon specifically. But then I ended up sticking with swords and spears and basically just piled all of my new like melee fighting point system things into them. I just think it does suck a little bit that most of the hours of the game do go into the repetition. I can't tell you how many times I had to fight boss 1 in multiple incarnations. The atmosphere though doesn't go for a Dark Souls terror kind of vibe, but it's definitely more action based with more awesome music and even an alert system. And some people may not like that, but I found it kind of refreshing. It also means that everything can get away with being a million times faster, going against copying Dark Souls tension. The combat, for instance, is magnificent, and not just with how guns and bows are not restrictive at all and easy as hell to use compared to Dark Souls, thank god. It's like a third-person shooter with 10 bullets at a time next to the sword fighting. It's so damn fast, smooth, and combos work seamlessly with them being assigned to square and triangle instead of the triggers, and enemies can attack in a variety of ways around you as well as above, below, and towards you. You do need to watch your stamina and not get yourself locked into a huge combo to then get staggered and killed in one combo in return, and if working your way around this ultra-fast combat, blocking, riposting, and dodging wasn't enough, your stamina is actually known as ki energy, which you can regain a portion of after a successful combo by timing a button press straight after the combo ends. And it doesn't just regain a little bit of stamina, but also brings you back to attack position quicker so that you can stay on the offensive and even close yokai demon pools of slow stamina eating portals if done perfectly in the middle of them. Everything here rewards offensive play, reaction, and speed, so you arguably need to be braver here even than in Bloodborne. Oh, and how about your stance? Yes, you have low, mid, and high stance, all with different defensive benefits, offensive styles from side strikes to thrusts, combo links, damage output, stagger potential, and follow-up grapple attacks for huge damage, and even can be upgraded for more offensive capabilities while you're switching through these stances. It's not easy, in fact it's hardcore, but damn is it rewarding. Even selling things and offering items to shrines is majorly quick, and even sprinting past enemies towards bosses couldn't be faster. It's badass as hell and so fucking stylish. And even though I didn't personally find a use for the buying systems and blacksmithing on the mission map, except for forging weapons and armor together to increase their strength, it is ridiculous how much the game does let you do. Even with the choice you need to make between selling items for money or offering them to the shrine checkpoints in the stages to not only get more level up points, but also potential rewards in the form of health elixirs and much more. I didn't even do a single thing online, no co-op or anything, and there was already so much for me to do completely alone. It's actually gobsmacking for a game that isn't even open world, where that depth would be expected. The depth even extends to the fact that whatever armor build you want to go for, I always go light. You can completely change the appearance of any armor in your collection to a set that you love without changing anything stat-wise about the armor you're wearing, basically giving you an endless sea of costumes to wear in the stats that you want, and not always making William look like he's ready for a wedding. Oh, he's so beautiful. Hilariously enough, I got all the way up to the Dark Samurai boss near the end of the game before my mate Dave Control told me about this sloth talisman magic trick that slows down enemies and bosses to a snail crawl. And after hearing about it, I actually rejigged all of my stats with a Book of Reincarnation just so I could get 2 uses per shrine checkpoint, and what do you know? The boss was already easy enough, but now he was a fucking joke. And when everything's got a little bit too hectic, yeah, I used it in the last parts once or twice just to see how much easier you can make the bosses. It's like the devs thought of everything. Like, if you decided to pour stats stats into magic and had weak melee strikes, something like this is an amazing compromise in order for you to stand a chance against a few of these bosses. And the bosses themselves, they're actually all pretty great and all pretty unique, despite the fact that many of them are just, well, people. And even the people have many different tricks up their sleeves which make the same strategies not possible for every encounter, whether that be occasional flight, delayed combos to fuck your dodging up, or even projectiles and spells. Every encounter feels different for sure and are incredibly tense and difficult, but they aren't massively memorable in my opinion despite how great of fights they are. And was I burning to learn more about how they fit in the story? No, most of them are just historical figures possessed or just evil for the sake of being evil, and the rest are demons, like regular yokai demons but bigger, faster and more insane. They are intense fucking fights though, and work around the fast aggressive gameplay even more so since you can make them run out of stamina themselves and then stun lock them, much like any other enemy in the game actually. And some, like this abomination here, are kind of puzzle based as well as reactionary, needing you to weaken different limbs and then go for the head as fast as you can once it trips over. And my favourite demon is this one. So messed up, my god. Along with the final epilogue boss, of course, I love that thing. They close off the missions perfectly and are just climactic enough where they leave you feeling stronger than ever, but don't leave much of an impact compared to Bloodborne or Dark Souls bosses in my opinion. They all just flow better in those games, and that's probably due to the more fantastical lore and open world making them feel more a part of the journey. And of course, a lot of them are just regular people that appear out of nowhere. Overall though, can I still recommend Nioh? Absolutely, if you can stand the challenge at least, because it definitely is brutal. And it stands out on its own enough against Dark Souls that I had a blast without even commenting on the similar aspects. But the main things holding it back for me are the lack of surprises and straight treks in some level designs, and the amount of fucking repetition for the majority of hours dedicated to leveling up with the side quests with locations, bosses and enemies. Even seeping into the main missions themselves, which leave you more annoyed to see the same enemies and demons over and over towards the final parts with not many more unique punches to throw other than the bosses. So yeah, I'm gonna give Nioh an 8 out of 10. If it's your birthday today or watching this video, happy freaking birthday to you, and please remember to stay beautiful.